Hello everyone, welcome to today's video. So here is a question that I get asked quite often, especially from people who are new to project management field or who are considering a career switch. What exactly does a project manager do on a day-to-day basis? Now, if you have been exploring project management as a career option, you have probably come across job descriptions that throw around terms such as stakeholder management or risk mitigation, or let's say scope control, okay? But what do these actually mean in practice? And more importantly, what does a typical day look like for someone as a project manager? You see guys, there is often a disconnect between what people think project managers do and what we actually spend our time on. Some people imagine that we just sit in meetings all day, while others think that we are glorified task managers with some fancy titles. However, the reality is quite different, and understanding this is crucial if you are serious about building a career in project management. So in today's video, I'll walk you through 5 core areas that define what project managers really do, breaking down our roles and responsibilities in a way that gives you a crystal clear picture of this profession. And believe me, the 5th area I'll discuss will probably surprise you, because it's really something that most laymen do not realize, and it is actually a very big part of our job as project manager, and it is quite critical for project success. By the way, if you're new here, I am Ray and I'm a PMP and a PRINCE2 certified project manager with over 15 years of experience in project management. I currently work as a program manager in the UK, and for the past 5 years, more than 5 years, I've been coaching aspiring project professionals to build rewarding careers in this field. So let's get into it. So let's start with the first core area, project planning and initiation. Now this is where most people get confused about what we actually do, okay? Because they think that project managers just plan everything in advance and then execute. However, it is much more nuanced than that, okay? First, let me clarify something very fundamental. We need to understand what constitutes a project versus what's just business as usual operations, okay? You see guys, a project is a temporary endeavor with a defined beginning and an end, created to deliver a unique product, service, or result. For instance, implementing a new software system across your organization, that's a project, okay? However, the daily maintenance of that software once it's live, that's not a project, and that's business as usual operations, okay? Projects have specific characteristics. They are temporary, they are unique, they create something very new, okay? Business as usual activities are ongoing, they are repetitive and maintain existing operations. So when I'm working on installing new fire safety systems, let's say for example across multiple hospital buildings in the UK, that's a project. But the routine maintenance of that fire safety systems and those routine checks that needs to be done on the installed systems, that's operational work, and that is not a project. Now during the planning and the initiation phase of a project, we are essentially setting the foundation for everything that follows. This means defining the project scope clearly. What are we delivering? What are we not delivering? Very important. And what are the boundaries within which we are supposed to deliver the project as a project manager? We create project charters that formally authorize the project and establish our authority as project managers to allocate resources and make decisions. We also establish timelines that are realistic, not optimistic, okay? I have seen too many project managers fail because someone promised an unrealistic deadline just to get some approvals and some funds flowing for the project. That is really not acceptable as a project manager. Part of our job is to push back when timelines don't make sense and educate stakeholders on what actually is achievable and what is not. Finally, we set up project governance frameworks. Who makes what decisions? How changes will be managed? And what will be the escalation paths, etc., etc. This isn't just paperwork, okay? These frameworks saves us weeks of confusion and conflict later on when we are late into the planning stage or during the execution stage of a project. If you are finding this content valuable, guys, please hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. It helps me to understand that you appreciate educational content like this on YouTube and motivates me to create more videos to help you excel in project management. Okay, moving on to the second core area, team leadership and coordination. Now, this is where many people think project managers are just glorified taskmasters, okay? But that's completely wrong. You see, guys, as project managers, we are leading cross-functional teams where we often have no direct authority over team members. Very, very critical for you to understand. The finance analyst, the IT developer, the marketing specialist, they all report to their functional managers. They don't report to me. I am not their line manager as a project manager. So these shared resources do not report to the project managers. So question is, how do we get things done? And the answer is through servant leadership. Servant leadership means we are here to serve our team and not the other way around. We remove obstacles, we facilitate communication, and we create an environment where people can do their best work and feel best supported. When my team member says they can't access a system, I don't just escalate it, right? And the buck doesn't stop there. I need to actively work with the team member or with IT or with XYZ to resolve the issue so that they can focus on their deliverables. And that is the biggest role of a project manager to ensure project success. So project managers are also the common thread that holds everything together, okay? Different departments speak different languages, they have different priorities, and they have been committed to work across different projects. Our job is to translate between these groups, align everyone towards common project objectives, and resolve conflicts before they actually derail the project. For instance, when the engineering team says they need 2 extra weeks, but the marketing team has already committed to a launch date, we don't just pass the messages back and forth as a messenger, okay? We facilitate discussions, help both the team to understand each other's constraints, and work collaboratively to find solutions that will work for everyone. The key here is to influence without authority. We lead through relationships, we lead through trust, and by demonstrating value, okay? Not by demonstrating hierarchical power. Make sense? All right, let's move on to the third core area, risk and issue management. Now this probably is one of the most critical aspects of what we do as a project manager. And yes, again going back to the common theme that it's often misunderstood by many people outside the project management profession. You see, when I talk about risk mitigation and risk planning, our job as project managers isn't just to predict the future, right? It is to make sure that we prepare for any unforeseen circumstances or risks which might impact our project in terms of budget, quality, timeline, etc. So this means constantly asking the what if questions. What if our key vendor delays delivery? What if a critical team member leaves the organization? What if new regulations or legislations come into effect mid-project? However, on the other side of the spectrum as well, we also deal with issues that have already materialized and they are impacting the project. For instance, during my fire safety projects with one of my organizations previously, we discovered asbestos in a building, okay, and it was not mentioned in the initial surveys. So the asbestos was already found and we needed to act upon it. Now that is not a risk anymore, okay? It is a live issue that needs immediate attention because asbestos in the UK and in many parts of the world is a primary health and safety hazard and needs to be managed properly. So the key difference here is risks are potential problems we plan for and issues are actual problems we solve right now. We develop mitigation strategies for risk, let's say backup vendors, cross-training for team members, or let's say reasonable buffers into the timeline and the schedules for the project. However, for issues, we activate our contingency plans and manage the immediate impact. Now, what many people do not realize is that good risk management actually saves organizations a huge amount of cost and resources. I've seen projects where early risk identification prevented cost overruns that could have been 10 times the original budget. We maintain risk registers as project managers, we conduct regular risk reviews and assessments, and most importantly, we communicate these risks to stakeholders so that they can make an informed decision, right? Now let's talk about the fourth core area, stakeholder communication and reporting. This is where project managers often spend significant chunk of their time, and it's much more strategic than people realize. You see guys, we are essentially the central communication hub for the entire project. Every buck stops with the project manager. We are constantly managing expectations, providing regular updates, and ensuring everyone has the information they need to make decisions. However, here is something very crucial. We are not expected to be the subject matter expert in every domain. When stakeholders ask technical questions about software architecture or detailed engineering specifications, our jobs isn't to be the encyclopedia and have all the answers, right? Instead, we identify the right subject matter experts, whether within the organization or outside the organization, and bring them into the conversation. That is the role of a project manager. For instance, let's say if a client asks about the fire resistance rating of a particular material, I do not pretend that I know everything, right? I connect them with our fire safety engineer who can provide accurate and more detailed information. The role of a project manager is to facilitate these conversations, ensure the right people are talking to each other, and translate complex technical information into business language that decision makers can understand. We as project managers bridge the gap between technical teams and business stakeholders. We also manage the flow of information, right? What needs to be communicated, to when, to whom, and in what format. A senior executive doesn't need the same level of detail as the technical team leader, right? We tailor our communication to the audience while ensuring transparency and accountability throughout the project. The key is knowing when to call in the experts and orchestrating effective communication between all parties. Make sense? Finally, let's discuss the fifth area, and this one might surprise you: client guidance and scope clarification. You see guys, many clients come to us knowing they have a problem, but exactly they don't know what the solution is, or they don't know what could be a potential solution. Now personally, I have worked with many clients who say things like we need to improve our infrastructure, or let's say we want a better project delivery. However, when you dig deeper, they can't really articulate specific requirements or outcomes they are looking for. That is where we need to step in as project managers who are guides and mentors. Our job becomes helping them discover what they actually need. We ask probing questions, we facilitate workshops, and use our experience to guide them through the possibilities. For instance, when a client says that they want better safety, or let's say better fire safety, we help them understand whether they need compliance upgrades, or new detection systems, or complete infrastructure overhauls, because all of those three options will come with different risks, different costs, different schedules, right? So we as project managers bring industry knowledge and best practices to help clients make informed decisions. Very crucial. Sometimes we even have to challenge their assumptions or redirect their thinking when their initial ideas won't solve the underlying problems, or when they are expecting something which is very utopian or could not be achieved realistically or without a huge involvement of funds and resources. So that is where a project manager becomes a coach, guide, and a mentor to the client. So those were the 5 core areas that define what project managers really do. We are planners, we are leaders, risk managers, communication facilitators, and client advisors, all rolled into one. It's like saying project managers are jack of all trades and master of none. And it's okay to not be the master of anything, right? As we have already discussed, that you have subject matter experts as masters, and you as project managers, jack of all trades, need to call upon those subject matter experts when and where they are needed. The role of a project manager is challenging, but it's an incredibly rewarding profession, guys, that touches every aspect of a business. If you're considering this as a career path, focus on developing the skills that we have discussed in this video. And if this video has helped you to clarify what we as project managers actually do, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. And if you want to become a project manager, now you have all the details to make an informed choice. And ask yourself that whether you like doing the stuff that we have discussed in the video. If not, becoming a project manager is not for you, and that's perfectly fine. There are other careers in the industry which are equally or even more rewarding, okay? However, the intent of this video is to ensure that you make an informed decision if you want to build a career in the path of project management. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one very soon.